May 31st, 1223. The Pontic steppe, south of what is now Donetsk, Ukraine. The grass is knee-high and dry, the color of old bone. The sky is a flat, bleached white, the kind that presses down on your chest and makes the horizon feel like a lid. And 20,000 Mongol horsemen wheel their mounts in unison, put their backs to the enemy, and ride away, not at a gallop, at a controlled trot, ranks tight, banners still flying, as if they have decided, collectively, that this fight is not worth dying for. Behind them, rising in a brown curtain of dust, come 80,000 Rus and Cuman warriors, screaming, pounding shields, certain they have broken the most terrifying military force the world has ever produced. They are wrong. They do not know it yet. But in 9 days, almost none of them will be alive. You need to understand what those 80,000 men saw when the Mongols turned. They saw fear. They saw the enemy's spine crack. Every instinct honed by centuries of steppe warfare told the Rus' princes one thing: chase them, run them down, finish this. And that instinct is exactly what two men named Jebe and Subutai were counting on. Those 20,000 horsemen were not retreating. They were hunting, and the chase was the weapon. Let me set the stage properly, because this story does not start at the river. It starts 2 years earlier, in the war rooms of Genghis Khan. In 1221, Genghis is deep in his campaign against the Khwarezmian Empire in Central Asia. Cities are burning from Samarkand to Merv. Millions are displaced. He cannot spare a full invasion force for the western steppe, but he needs to know what is out there, who lives beyond the Caspian, what armies wait in the lands of the Rus. So he detaches 2 of his finest generals and gives them a mission that sounds almost suicidal. Jebe, known as the Arrow, a former enemy who once shot Genghis Khan in the neck during battle. When he was captured, he did not beg. He did not invent a story. He looked the Khan in the eye and admitted what he had done. Genghis was so struck by the honesty that he made Jebe a commander on the spot. That is the kind of man he was, and that honesty, that refusal to pretend, will matter in 9 days when the Rus' princes try to read his intentions and get every single one of them wrong. And Subutai, the son of a blacksmith, no noble blood, no famous lineage, just a mind that saw terrain the way a chess player sees a board, 3 moves ahead, always 3 moves ahead. Subutai will go on to fight in 32 major engagements across 4,000 miles of terrain, from the Korean peninsula to the plains of Hungary. He will win every single one. Military historians still argue about whether he is the greatest general who ever lived. I will let you decide after today. Genghis gives them 1 tumen each. A tumen is the largest Mongol operational unit, 10,000 riders, 2 tumens, 20,000 men. Their orders are simple: scout the western lands, identify threats, map the rivers, count the cities, and do not under any circumstances get destroyed doing it. The problem is that the western steppe is not empty. It belongs to the Cumans, also called Kipchaks, a nomadic Turkic people who have roamed these grasslands for generations, living by the horse, fighting by the bow, answering to no king. When Jebe and Subutai push west, the Cuman Khans panic. They have heard stories. They know what happened to the Khwarezmian cities, so they send riders north to the Rus principalities, offering gold, horses, and an alliance. The Rus' princes have spent decades fighting each other over river towns and trade routes. Kiev, Galicia, Chernigov, Smolensk. They cannot agree on anything. But when the Cuman envoys arrive with their warnings, the princes find, for once, a common enemy. Mstislav the Bold, Prince of Galicia, takes command of the combined force. His cousin, Mstislav the Old, Grand Prince of Kiev, brings his own contingent. Together with Cuman cavalry, they assemble roughly 80,000 warriors on the banks of the Dnieper, the largest army Eastern Europe has fielded in a generation, and they march south to kill the Mongols. First contact happens near the Dnieper's eastern bank. The Mongols send a small screening force forward, maybe 200 riders. The Rus' vanguard, mostly Cuman light cavalry, smashes it. Jebe and Subutai pull back without committing a single reserve. The coalition celebrates. Bells ring in the Rus' camp. Mstislav the Bold reportedly drinks wine from a captured Mongol helmet, laughing, passing it down the line. The princes send word back to their cities. The invaders are cowards. They flee at the first sign of steel. This is the moment the trap begins to close. Jebe and Subutai did not lose that skirmish. They chose to lose it. They needed the coalition to feel superior. They needed the coalition to feel hungry. And nothing makes an army hungrier than the sight of a running enemy. So the retreat starts. Day 1. The Mongols ride east at a steady pace, keeping just beyond arrow range. Not too fast, not too slow, close enough that the coalition can see their dust, far enough that a charge will never quite catch them. The coalition follows. Day 2. Same rhythm. The Mongols abandon a camp, tents still standing, fires still smoldering, pots of half-cooked mutton left on the coals. The Rus riders who reach the camp first eat the food, take the tents, and send word forward. They are panicked. They are disorganized. They are falling apart. Day 3. Another abandoned camp. This time, there are wounded horses left behind, saddles, broken carts, a trail of debris that says, plainly, we are desperate. We are losing control. The evidence mounts, and every single piece of it is a lie, carefully staged by two men who understand something most commanders never learn. An army that believes it is winning will stop thinking. It will stop questioning. It will stop looking at the shape of the ground ahead. If this is the kind of history that makes you grip the edge of your seat, hit subscribe right now. The story of how 20,000 riders dismantled 80,000 warriors is not over. The worst is still ahead, and what happens at the river changes everything. By day 4, the coalition is stretched. The Cuman cavalry, faster and more aggressive, surges ahead. The Rus' infantry, slower, heavier, lags behind. A gap opens between them, miles of empty steppe between the horsemen and the foot soldiers. Mstislav the Bold rides with the vanguard, pushing the pace, drunk on the chase. Mstislav the Old, commanding the Kiev contingent, rides with the rear, growing uneasy. He sends messengers forward. Slow down, wait for the infantry, form a proper line. Mstislav the Bold ignores him. This is what military historians call command fragmentation. Not a disagreement about strategy. Something worse. Two commanders, same army, no longer speaking the same language. One sees a rout in progress. The other sees a pattern he cannot name. And the gap between them is not just physical. It is psychological. It is the distance between arrogance and doubt. Days 5 and 6. The retreat continues. The Mongols send small groups backward to skirmish, then wheel and flee. Each time the coalition surges forward. Each time the Mongols slip away. Riders who were disciplined on day 1 are now whooping, standing in their stirrups, pointing at the retreating dust, like boys chasing a stray dog. It is maddening. It is intoxicating. The Rus' warriors begin to believe they are invincible. They begin to ride looser, less disciplined, spreading out across the steppe in a wide, ragged wave instead of a tight formation. And Jebe and Subutai watch all of it. They watch from the ridgelines. They note the gaps. They count the hours between the vanguard and the rear. They are building a picture of exactly how far the coalition will stretch before it snaps. Days 7 and 8. The Mongols abandon their supply wagons. This is significant. An army that abandons its supplies is, by every conventional reading, in full collapse. Jebe and Subutai want the coalition to see this. They want Mstislav the Bold to look at those empty wagons and think, they are desperate, they are starving. One more day, and they will scatter. But here is what the Mongols are actually doing. They are lightening their load. Every abandoned wagon makes their horses faster. Every mile of retreat pulls the coalition further from its own supply lines, further from reinforcement, further from any terrain the Rus princes know. The Mongols are not running from the enemy. They are dragging the enemy into a killing ground of their own choosing. And the killing ground is a river valley, about 9 days' ride to the east. A shallow, marshy stretch of water called the Kalka. In modern geography, it is the Kalchik River in southeastern Ukraine. The banks are soft. The surrounding steppe grass grows tall enough to hide a rider, and the ridgelines on either side offer perfect elevation for archers. Jebe and Subutai picked this spot days ago, maybe weeks ago. They have been riding toward it the entire time. Every abandoned camp, every staged skirmish, every wounded horse left bleeding in the grass. All of it was designed to bring 80,000 men to this exact stretch of muddy water on this exact morning, morning of day 9. The coalition reaches the Kalka. It is not much to look at. A slow, brown ribbon cutting through the steppe, shallow enough to ford in most places. But the banks are soft, muddy, the kind of ground that swallows a horse's hooves if you push too hard. Mstislav the Bold does not wait. He does not send scouts across. He does not wait for Mstislav the Old's infantry to close the gap. He orders the Cumans and his own cavalry into the water. They splash across, form up on the far bank, and charge. And for about 30 minutes, it looks like victory. The Mongol screening force on the far bank gives way, falls back. The Cumans scream forward, drunk on momentum. Mstislav the Bold rides with them, sword drawn, certain he is about to finish what 9 days of chasing started. You can almost hear it. The splash of hooves hitting soft mud, the creak of leather, the wet-sucking sound of a riverbank that does not want to let go. Then the ground shifts, not literally, but it might as well. From the ridgelines on both flanks, hidden in the tall steppe grass, Mongol heavy cavalry rises. Not a charge, a wall. Horsemen in laminar armor, lances couched, riding knee to knee in total silence. The word for this in Mongol tactical doctrine is a mongodai, a feigned withdrawal designed to draw the enemy into a prepared kill zone. The retreat was the mongodai. 9 days of it, and now the jaw closes. The Cumans hit the wall and shatter. Arrows fall from the flanks in sheets, not aimed shots. Volume. Thousands of arrows arcing into a packed, confused mass of horses and men who cannot turn, cannot retreat, cannot form a line. The soft bank of the Kalka behind them turns to red mud as thousands of riders try to scramble back across the water. They trample their own. They drown in shallow water because the weight of armor and panic pins them face down in 6 inches of current. And Mstislav the Old? He is still on the western bank. He watched the cavalry cross. He watched them charge, and when the ambush sprang, when the arrows started falling, he made a choice. He did not cross the river to help. He pulled his wagons into a circle on the high ground and waited. Some historians say he was paralyzed by the speed of the collapse. Others say he saw the trap clearly and refused to walk into it. Either way, the result is the same. He watches his cousin's army die from the top of a hill. He watches for hours, and when the Mongols finish with the cavalry, they turn toward him. The siege of Mstislav the Old's wagon camp lasts 3 days. The Mongols do not storm it. They do not need to. They surround it. They cut the water. They wait. Somewhere inside the wagon circle, a horse screams, then goes quiet. On the 3rd day, Mstislav the Old surrenders. He is promised safe passage. He is promised his life. The Mongols honor neither promise. What happens next is recorded in the Novgorod Chronicle, one of the primary sources for this battle, and it is one of the most specific acts of cruelty in medieval warfare. The Rus princes, including Mstislav the Old, are laid flat on the ground. A wooden platform is built over their bodies. The Mongol commanders climb onto the platform. They sit down to a victory feast, and they eat and drink and celebrate, while the princes beneath them are slowly crushed to death under the weight of the boards and the men standing on them. If you are still here, if this story has you sitting a little differently in your chair, leave a comment and tell me. Did you know any of this before today? The next part changes how you think about power itself. The numbers are staggering. Of the 80,000 Rus and Cuman warriors who marched south, roughly 70,000 do not come home. Some sources put the figure higher. The Novgorod Chronicle says that every 10th man returned. 6 Rus' princes are dead. Mstislav the Bold escapes with a handful of riders, barely making it to a boat on the Dnieper. He will die of his wounds within the year. The Cuman Confederacy, already fractured, never recovers. The Rus' principalities lose an entire generation of military leadership in a single afternoon. And Jebe and Subutai, they do not celebrate. They do not garrison the territory. They ride on. They continue their reconnaissance loop, pushing west, cataloging rivers, counting cities, mapping the roads. This was never about conquest. Not yet. This was reconnaissance by fire, a probe, a test. They were learning how the Rus fought, how they thought, where they were weak. And 13 years later, when Batu Khan, grandson of Genghis, returns with 100,000 riders to conquer Russia, he already knows everything he needs to know. Jebe and Subutai wrote the report. Remember what I told you at the start. 20,000 horsemen turned their backs and rode away. And 80,000 men cheered because they thought they had seen fear. They had not seen fear. They had seen a question being asked. The question was, how far will you chase something that looks like it is running? And the answer, written in the mud of the Kalka River, was, far enough to die. The retreat was never a retreat. It was a leash, and the coalition walked itself all the way to the end of it. So, here is the first thing this battle teaches you. The most dangerous enemy is not the one who charges at you. It is the one who makes you chase them. Jebe and Subutai did not defeat 80,000 warriors with superior weapons. They defeated them with a story. The story was, we are afraid, and the coalition believed it, because believing it felt good. Believing it meant the hard part was over. That is how deception works. Not by hiding the truth, by offering a more comfortable one. The second lesson is about patience. 9 days, 216 hours of riding away from the enemy. Letting them scream insults at your back, letting them eat your abandoned food and mock your broken carts, knowing that every hour of retreat is tightening the noose. Most commanders cannot do this. Most humans cannot do this. We are wired to respond to provocation, to turn around, to prove we are not cowards. Jebe and Subutai proved that the hardest military maneuver is not the charge. It is the discipline to keep walking away until the ground is right. And the third lesson, the one that stays with you at 2 in the morning. The coalition at the Kalka River was not outmatched in weapons, not outmatched in numbers, not outmatched in courage. They were outmatched in silence. The Mongols spent 9 days saying nothing. No taunts, no threats, just the sound of hooves moving east, steady as a heartbeat, drawing the coalition toward a river with soft banks and tall grass on the ridgelines. And in that silence, 80,000 men wrote their own ending. They wrote it with every mile they chased, every abandoned camp they celebrated. Every messenger they ignored. The Mongols did not erase this army from history. The army erased itself. All Jebe and Subutai did was hold the pen. So I will leave you with one question, and I genuinely want to hear your answer in the comments. If you were Mstislav the Old, watching from the western bank as your cousin's cavalry charges into the ambush, do you cross the river? Do you try to save them, knowing it might be another trap? Or do you pull your wagons into a circle and wait, hoping the Mongols will lose interest? What would you have done? Tell me. I read every single comment. History is not just what happened. It is the question of what you would have done. And the Kalka River has been asking that question for 800 years. It is still waiting for an answer.